everybody, it's Hera, and today I'm going to start a new video series on my channel, a short little video series that I will not drop in the middle for once, because I'm going to sit down right now. I do not care how long it takes, I'm going to film all the videos right now. And that video series is book recommendations based on the Greek gods. Of course, we recently got the news that Percy Jackson is going to get a new show adaptation on Disney Plus, and I'm really excited. I did read Percy Jackson quite late, so I'm not like obsessed with it, but I'm still like pretty obsessed with it. I still did really enjoy it, and I'm definitely going to reread the series before the show comes out. But tangent, which shouldn't get too long because this video will be long enough as it is. Anyway, I decided to celebrate this new TV show. I would sit down and do recommendation style videos in the type of like recommendations for the Hogwarts houses, but not for the Hogwarts houses, but for the Greek gods, which kind of put me in front of a problem because of course there's quite a few more Greek gods than Hogwarts houses, and so I asked on Twitter in which form you would prefer me to make those videos, and luckily most of you thought that the way that I would prefer to do them is the smartest, which is not to make one video per god, but also not to make one video for all the gods, but just a few gods per video. And so the way I'm going to do this is you're going to get 4 videos, because I narrowed the countless Greek gods down to 16. Of course, the 12 Olympians plus then some gods that I just personally enjoy talking about, I would say. And I'm going to give you 2 recommendations for each god. So there's going to be 8 books in total in each video, so strap in. Some of those videos might be a bit longer, and those recommendations will be based partly on some characteristics that were ascribed to the gods during the long time that they were worshipped, which of course they changed a lot during the time. There wasn't ever a definitive version of each god. And then some of those recommendations will just also be based on pop culture references, because I kind of found out that even though I have almost 400 books on my shelves, I kind of struggled finding 32 recommendations, so I kind of had to tweak the characteristics they're based on a little bit and just kind of had to pick and choose so I could find a book for each characteristic. So let's get started, and in this video I first want to start with a recommendation that's kind of based on all the Greek gods, because something that all the Greek gods have in common is that they are incredibly flawed, which is why I'm kind of annoyed every time there's a Twitter discourse about how this god or that goddess is so incredibly flawed, because it kind of shows that you do not really understand Greek mythology outside from pop culture, which is okay, but just like, it still makes it obvious. Because pretty much there aren't really any gods that were the good guys, but there also weren't any gods that were the villains. They just helped humans, sometimes for their own gains, sometimes on a whim, but at their core they pretty much were even more human than the humans. And just like, think of Zeus. Like, they were flawed. Of course, that's also down to some of the storytellers of ancient Greece, because there were some storytellers that were on better terms with the gods, so to speak, and some storytellers that just really didn't like the gods, which is where, for example, Athena gets a lot of her more negative iterations from. And so I thought I would recommend you a book with an incredibly flawed main character. And that is The Picture of Dorian Gray by Oscar Wilde. This story follows Dorian Gray, who is this most beautiful young man, and when he has a portrait made of himself, he kind of, for the first time, notices his beauty, and he doesn't want to lose it, so he makes a deal. I mean, it's not made clear very much, but he basically makes a deal that the portrait will age instead of him. And Dorian Gray in no way is a good guy. He is very much, I would say, like a Greek god, in that he only cares about himself. He might on a whim help others, but he does a lot of horrible stuff as well. He's kind of really like a petulant child, which is a characteristic that some of the Greek gods also sometimes get. And although he also does a lot of horrible things in this book, he's not evil in any sense of the word. And so I thought I would recommend this book, first of all, because it's my favorite book of all time. The writing is absolutely beautiful, and I thought it just fit really well. So since I'm going to have 4 gods per video, in this god I wanted to talk about the big 3 as well as Hera, since I needed a 4th one, and I felt like she fit quite well in there as the wife of Zeus. And of course I'm going to start with Zeus, the big guy. So my first recommendation for this would be based on a massive book or massive series, and for that I chose my favorite epic fantasy series by Brandon Sanderson, which is the Stormlight Archive series. This series is set in a world that every few thousand years has like this thing that happens that's called a desolation, and at the beginning of this novel the next desolation is just about to come, and so we follow a handful of characters that of course have important roles to play in the near future. And this, I have talked about it a lot of times already, is one of my absolutely favorite series of all time. I'm so excited for the 4th book in this series. I absolutely love the characters in this series. Character work really is one of Brandon Sanderson's strong suits, in my opinion, because he just writes really compelling, three-dimensional, and just amazing characters. And then of course, like, the world building and magic system is also one of the great things that Brandon Sanderson is known for, and that's also, again, something that appears a lot in this book. The next recommendation I based on the fact that one of the things that Zeus is probably most well known for is for being a serial adulterer and constantly having different liaisons with goddesses as well as humans. And so I thought I'd share a recommendation that's outside of what I usually read. And for once, I also didn't let myself choose a classic or a nonfiction, because I feel at this point they're kind of the main genres as well. I mean, I don't read them as much as fantasy by far, but I still didn't want to choose one of them. So I actually was only left with 1 book, which I luckily did really enjoy, and that is Red, White and Royal Blue by Casey Mcchrystal. This is a contemporary love story between the first son of the United States as well as a prince of England, and it was just so much fun. I mean, I have heard that especially British people had problems with this book because the portrayal of the royal family isn't all that accurate and kind of cringy at times. And I also have to admit that while I read it, it did feel very fan-fiction-y, not in the way that it was badly written, but it's just very tropey and it's sickly sweet, and I just loved it. It was so cute. And so yeah, I can highly recommend this. Next, I have to talk about Poseidon, and I actually had quite a hard time finding like prompts to base my recommendations on. So the first one is the lazy one. Poseidon, of course, is the god of the oceans and the sea, and so I thought I'd recommend you a book that has a sea setting, an ocean setting, and for that I decided to pick To Kill a Kingdom by Mcchrystal, which funnily enough I chose for the same prompt last month for the owls. And this is a Little Mermaid retelling where we follow a dual perspective. One of them is a prince who has sworn to kill all sirens, and the other one is a siren who has been cursed with legs, and to get her fins back she has to get the heart of said prince, both figuratively and literally. And I just really enjoyed this book. I mean, again, it's a book that in a way is very tropey. It's YA, standalone high fantasy, but sometimes I just need that and sometimes I just want that. And I think if you have a craving like that, if you have a craving for just a quick read with compelling characters that maybe are a little bit forgettable, but who cares, that you just want to have fun with in the moment, I would definitely go and pick this up. The second prompt for Poseidon is based on the fact that I feel like Poseidon is kind of just forgotten a little bit among the big 3, because let's be honest, who are you gonna think of first when you think of the big 3 gods? You have Zeus, who's like the main one, and everyone loves Hades, and then you just have Poseidon just sadly coming in at the end. And so I thought for this I would recommend a series with a great second book. Because usually on BookTube, especially in the fantasy community, we know this little word called middle book syndrome, which kind of means that the first book in the series is great because you kind of get into the series and you get started, and then the second book lags a little bit because mostly you're just setting up stuff for the last book and there's not really that much plot that's in the second book. And since it is something negative, I thought I'd share a series that does not have that doesn't have middle book syndrome, and that in my opinion is the Black Jewel series by Anne Bishop, the second book being Heir to the Shadows, which is actually my favorite book in the entire trilogy and series, like including the 7 books that came after the original trilogy. This series is set in a world whose society has been corrupted and perverted for centuries. And so one day there's this prophecy of this woman, which the living myth Dreams Made Flesh, who is going to come and who is going to bring society back on the right path. And during the entire series, we just follow a bunch of characters whose lives are changed by the coming of Witch. And I just love the second book the most because I feel like the first book is very much set up in a way, and in the second book it's really where everything properly comes together. A lot of characters that had like their separate arcs in the first book finally meet in the second book, which is just really nice to see. I've loved those scenes when the characters you've grown to love kind of finally meet and finally come together. And so yeah, that's why I definitely love the second book most in this series. The third god I want to talk about, of course, is Hades, who is god of the underworld, not god of the dead. However, Hades a lot of times is mistaken for the god of the dead, and so I wanted to recommend a book that just was completely different than what I expected when I went in. And for that I went with The Ocean at the End of the Lane by Neil Gaiman, and I cannot say that it's definitely completely different than what I expected, because I kind of expected like a creepy book, but that was everything I knew about it. I will also not talk about the summary because I feel like you should go into this not knowing the summary, but I did not expect it to be like almost a middle grade book. It's written like middle grade, and so yeah, I expected an adult book, and in ways it is very much an adult book, but it's also kind of not. And yeah, I can highly recommend it. It's beautiful written. I absolutely love The Ocean at the End of the Lane. Then Hades kind of also seems to be Twitter's favorite broody, dark bad boy among the gods, so I thought I would recommend a series with that trope that I actually enjoyed, and that is The Cruel Prince by Holly Black, which is the first book in the Folk of the Air series. I mean, I did prefer The Wicked King technically, but The Cruel Prince of course is the first book. And again, this is very much along the lines of To Kill a Kingdom. It's just a fun YA ride, and I really enjoy it. In the series we follow Jude, who is a human who has been kind of kidnapped to the Fae realm after a Fae killed her parents. And she is tired of constantly being picked on by all the Fae and of being weak. So this series kind of follows her grab for power within the Fae court. And yeah, I just really enjoy it. I really enjoyed the dynamic between Jude and Carden, who is of course the broody bad boy, also Twitter's favorite broody bad boy. And so I thought this was a fitting pick for Hades. The last god in this video is going to be Hera, who is of course the godly wife of Zeus, and as such she has to deal a lot with his adultering. And so for the first book for Hera, I wanted to go with a book that I feel is mistreated by the book community, whether I felt that that's underhyped or just that everyone seems to hate on it a lot for some reason, and I went for that with The Gilded Wolves by Roshani Chokshi. This book gets a lot of shit for apparently being a straight up copy of The Six of Crows. I have never read The Six of Crows, so I cannot talk to that. But even if I had read it, I would highly doubt that I think it's similar, aside from the fact that maybe both are, as I've heard, ensemble pieces and both include a heist. But this story is among the books that I have read incredibly unique. This is set in a turn of the century Paris, and we follow a cast of characters that has incredible representation all around. I absolutely loved it. both in terms of ethnicities as well as in terms of sexualities, and they have to pull off a heist to get the legacy of one of the characters back. I really loved the magic system, even though it wasn't, like, that's one of the main things. It wasn't too well explained in the book, but the strong point of this book really, really is the characters, and I want more people to give it a chance and not just think that it's a Six of Crows 2.0, which I'm probably going to read Six of Crows soon, and I'm pretty sure I will think that it's not the same, because just being an ensemble piece and a heist story doesn't make two books the same. And then the second book for Hera, and also the last book in this first part of my series, is based on the fact that even though Hera is mistreated by Zeus a lot, she can, because of that, also be quite vengeful, as we learn especially in the Heracles myth. And so I wanted to recommend a book based on a revenge plotline. And for that, I went with Nevernight by Kristoff. And this book follows Mia Corvair, whose entire family has been killed when she was 11. And so she joins a school for assassins so she can then assassinate all the people who were in charge of killing her family. And the trilogy just follows her as she goes on this revenge quest. And I just really love it. I have actually a review on the entire series, so I will not tell you too much about why I love it. I'm also pretty sure that you probably know a lot about this book already, but I will leave my review linked down below and up there. And yeah, it's just a great series. I love Mia Corvair as a character. It's set in this world that's very Roman Empire inspired, with a city that's kind of Venetian because there's like canals and stuff, and yeah, I just highly enjoy it. I don't even mind the footnotes. And that was it for this first video in my new series. And so I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, maybe think about giving me a thumbs up and also maybe subscribing. Tell me in the comments down below which recommendations based on which gods you're looking forward to most in seeing in the future episodes of the series. And all the links to my social media are in the description box down below, so go and check those out. Also, I will add the links to the other 3 parts as I upload them in the description box as well. And with that said, I hope I'll see you soon. Bye!